When people talk about psychological secrets about women, they often expect something mysterious or dramatic, but the truth is far more interesting and much deeper than simple stereotypes. One of the most powerful psychological truths about women is that emotional awareness is often highly developed from an early age. Many women are socialized to notice subtle emotional shifts in others, to read facial expressions, tone changes, and body language with remarkable accuracy. This is not magic. It is a combination of biological sensitivity and years of social conditioning that encourage attentiveness to relationships. Because of this, women often pick up on unspoken tension, hidden frustration, or fading interest long before it is openly expressed. This heightened emotional perception can make them seem intuitive or even psychic, but in reality, it is a refined skill built on observation and empathy. However, this same sensitivity can also make them more affected by emotional environments, meaning harsh words, silent treatment, or emotional distance can leave a deeper impact than many realize. Another psychological layer that surprises many people is how strongly emotional safety influences attraction and attachment for women. While physical attraction certainly matters, long-term emotional security often outweighs superficial traits. A woman may initially be drawn to confidence or charm, but what keeps her invested is consistency, reliability, and the feeling that her emotions are respected. When she feels emotionally safe, her personality opens up in powerful ways. She becomes more expressive, playful, supportive, and deeply loyal. On the other hand, when emotional safety is threatened through dishonesty, unpredictability, or disrespect, her behavior can shift dramatically. She may become distant, guarded, or even appear cold. This change is not random. It is a psychological defense mechanism designed to protect her emotional well-being. One shocking reality is how much women value being heard rather than being fixed. In many situations, when a woman shares a problem, she is not necessarily looking for a solution. She is looking for validation, understanding, and connection. From a psychological perspective, verbal expression helps process emotion. Talking about a stressful situation allows the brain to regulate emotional intensity. When someone jumps immediately to solutions without acknowledging feelings, it can feel dismissive rather than helpful. What may appear as overreaction is often an unmet need for emotional acknowledgement. A simple response that shows understanding can strengthen bonds more than the most logical advice ever could. Many people underestimate the power of memory in female psychology. Women often remember specific details about conversations, dates, tones, and emotional reactions long after others have forgotten them. This is partly because emotionally charged experiences are stored more vividly in memory. When a woman brings up something from months ago, it is rarely about holding a grudge for no reason. More often, it is because that moment carried emotional significance. The brain prioritizes emotionally meaningful events, and recalling them is not about revenge but about unresolved feelings. Understanding this can completely change how conflicts are approached in relationships. Another surprising insight is how deeply appreciation affects a woman's behavior. Genuine recognition can transform her energy. When she feels valued for her efforts, whether emotional support, work contributions, or small daily acts, her motivation and warmth increase significantly. Appreciation reinforces emotional security and belonging. On the other hand, consistent lack of recognition can slowly reduce enthusiasm and emotional investment. This shift is gradual, which is why it often goes unnoticed until distance has already grown. Psychological research consistently shows that positive reinforcement strengthens desired behaviors, and this principle strongly applies in relationships with women. Jealousy in women is often misunderstood. While it can appear dramatic on the surface, it frequently stems from fear of losing emotional connection rather than simple possessiveness. Because many women tie emotional exclusivity closely to trust and commitment, any perceived threat to that exclusivity can trigger insecurity. This does not mean jealousy is always rational, but it is usually rooted in attachment concerns. When reassurance and transparency are present, jealousy tends to decrease. When secrecy or mixed signals are present, it intensifies. The emotional brain reacts to perceived risk long before logical reasoning steps in. Communication style is another area where psychological differences stand out. Women often use conversation as a way to build closeness rather than simply exchange information. Sharing daily experiences, even small details, strengthens emotional bonds. Silence or minimal responses can sometimes be interpreted as emotional withdrawal. What may feel like neutral behavior to one person can feel like distance to another. Understanding that conversation itself can be a form of affection helps bridge many misunderstandings. For many women, connection grows through words, shared thoughts, and mutual vulnerability. One of the most powerful psychological shifts in a woman occurs when trust is broken repeatedly. Unlike sudden anger, emotional withdrawal is quieter but more serious. When a woman stops expressing disappointment or stops arguing, it may not mean she no longer cares about the issue. It can mean she has started detaching emotionally. Psychologically, detachment is a self-protection strategy. Once emotional detachment sets in, rebuilding closeness becomes much harder. This is why consistent small acts of respect and honesty matter more than occasional grand gestures. Women also experience a complex relationship between independence and intimacy. Modern psychology shows that many women desire both autonomy and deep connection at the same time. Wanting personal growth, career success, and self-identity does not reduce the desire for love. In fact, when independence is supported rather than threatened, emotional commitment often becomes stronger. Feeling controlled or restricted can activate resistance, while feeling supported can increase loyalty. The balance between freedom and togetherness plays a significant role in long-term relationship satisfaction. Another psychological reality that surprises many is how mood fluctuations can be influenced by hormonal cycles. Hormones can subtly affect emotional sensitivity, stress tolerance, and energy levels. This does not mean emotions are irrational or invalid, but it explains why certain periods may amplify feelings. Awareness and empathy during these times can strengthen understanding rather than create conflict. Recognizing biological influences without dismissing emotional experiences is key to healthy interaction. Women are often highly responsive to nonverbal cues. Tone of voice, eye contact, posture, and even response time in messages can carry meaning. Because of strong pattern recognition in social contexts, inconsistencies between words and actions are quickly noticed. Saying "I'm fine" while sounding irritated will likely be detected. Authenticity builds trust because it aligns verbal and nonverbal communication. When signals are mixed, suspicion can grow even if no wrongdoing exists. Consistency between behavior and words is one of the strongest trust builders. Perhaps one of the most shocking psychological truths is how deeply women can love once emotional trust is established. When she feels secure, appreciated, and understood, her capacity for loyalty and support can be extraordinary. She may invest significant emotional energy into maintaining harmony and nurturing growth in the relationship. However, this depth of emotional investment means betrayal or neglect can cut deeply. Emotional bonds are not formed casually. They are built layer by layer through shared vulnerability and consistent care. At the core of many female psychological patterns is the desire for meaningful connection. While individual personalities differ widely, the underlying drive for emotional resonance is powerful. Feeling chosen, respected, and emotionally prioritized has a profound impact on behavior and attachment. When these needs are met, many negative patterns fade naturally. When they are ignored, frustration grows. Understanding these psychological dynamics does not mean manipulating them. It means respecting them. The real secret is that emotional depth, relational awareness, and sensitivity to connection shape much of their behavior. When these elements are understood and valued rather than dismissed, relationships become stronger, communication becomes smoother, and conflicts become easier to resolve. Another psychological truth that many people rarely talk about is how much a woman's sense of self-worth influences her relationship behavior. A woman who feels secure within herself tends to love differently than a woman who constantly questions her value. When self-worth is strong, she does not chase validation in unhealthy ways. She sets boundaries, communicates clearly, and expects mutual respect. But when self-worth has been damaged by past experiences, rejection, or betrayal, She may become overly anxious, overly accommodating, or emotionally defensive. These reactions are not random personality flaws. They are protective responses shaped by experience. The shocking part is that the same woman can behave completely differently depending on how safe and valued she feels in a specific relationship. Emotional security has the power to either calm her fears or intensify them. Many people are surprised to learn how strongly consistency affects a woman's emotional stability in a relationship. Grand romantic gestures can be impressive, but they do not build long-term trust on their own. What truly shapes her perception is repeated behavior. If someone is caring one day and distant the next, it creates psychological confusion. The brain naturally looks for patterns, and inconsistency forces it into a state of alertness. Over time, this unpredictability can create anxiety, even if no obvious problem exists. On the other hand, steady communication, reliable behavior, and emotional availability create a calming effect. Consistency signals safety, and safety allows deeper vulnerability. Without consistency, even strong attraction can slowly fade under the weight of uncertainty. There is also a hidden psychological dynamic in how women test emotional investment. These tests are not always conscious or manipulative. Sometimes they appear as small moments of withdrawal, subtle questions, or shifts in tone. What she is often measuring is effort and attention. Does he notice when something feels off? Does he respond with care or with indifference? These moments give her data about emotional reliability. It may seem subtle, but the response to these small emotional cues can strongly influence how much she invests long-term. When her concerns are brushed aside repeatedly, she may stop expressing them entirely. And when she stops expressing them, emotional distance quietly begins. Another powerful insight is how deeply comparison can impact female psychology. Social comparison, especially in the age of social media, plays a significant role in self-perception. Women are often exposed to unrealistic standards of beauty, success, and lifestyle. Even confident women can feel pressure under constant comparison. Compliments that focus only on appearance may provide temporary reassurance, but deeper affirmation about intelligence, strength, or character creates more lasting impact. When she feels valued beyond surface traits, her confidence becomes more stable. When she feels reduced to appearance alone, insecurity can quietly grow, even if she does not openly admit it. Stress also affects women in a unique psychological way. Many women cope with stress by seeking connection rather than isolation. Talking through a problem helps regulate emotional intensity. If she seems more talkative during stressful times, it is often because connection feels grounding. When that need for connection is met with withdrawal or impatience, stress can intensify instead of decrease. Understanding this difference in stress response can prevent many misunderstandings. What looks like overthinking is often simply emotional processing happening out loud. Another surprising psychological pattern is how deeply women observe effort. Effort is often interpreted as a measure of care. Small acts like remembering details, checking in during a busy day, or showing up on time carry strong symbolic meaning. Effort communicates priority. When effort declines, even if love is still present, doubt can start forming. The mind begins asking questions. Has his interest changed? Am I no longer important? These doubts may not be voiced immediately, but they influence emotional behavior over time. The absence of effort speaks just as loudly as its presence. Emotional withdrawal in women is one of the most misunderstood behaviors. When a woman stops arguing, stops questioning, and stops reacting, it can appear peaceful on the surface. But psychologically, this often indicates internal detachment. Emotional investment requires energy. When she no longer feels hope that issues will improve, she may conserve that energy by disconnecting. This stage is much harder to reverse than anger or conflict. Anger shows care. Silence sometimes signals resignation. Recognizing this difference can change the direction of a relationship before it is too late. Another hidden truth is that women often remember how they felt around someone more than what was specifically said. The emotional atmosphere leaves a lasting imprint. If she consistently feels anxious, criticized, or unappreciated, those feelings attach to the person associated with them. Conversely, if she feels calm, supported, and inspired, those emotions strengthen attachment. The brain links people to emotional states. This is why tone, patience, and empathy matter so much. Emotional memory shapes future reactions more than logic does. Understanding does not require decoding hidden messages. It requires attention, patience, and genuine care. At the end of the day, psychology shows that behavior is rarely random. It reflects needs, fears, experiences, and desires operating beneath the surface. When those inner layers are acknowledged instead of dismissed, connection becomes easier. The real secret is not about manipulation or tricks. It is about recognizing emotional patterns, respecting them, and responding with maturity. When that happens, relationships shift from confusion to clarity, from tension to trust, and from uncertainty to genuine emotional strength.